The courtroom thrummed with low murmurs as people filtered in, taking their seats in cautious curiosity. Some whispered behind cupped hands, others just watched silently, sensing something out of the ordinary. The polished wood of the judge's bench gleamed under the harsh fluorescence, towering above the chamber like a throne carved out of absolute power. It cast a heavy presence, a reminder that in this room, only one voice mattered. Or at least, that's what Judge Meredith Langston had always believed. Standing at the defendant's table was a man who didn't fit the image most expected. Tall, sharply dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, with a smooth, composed demeanor, Raymond Ellis didn't appear shaken by the weight of the judicial system staring down at him. His shoulders remained square, his eyes focused, calm. There was no fidgeting, no visible anxiety, just resolve. Judge Langston, however, was a different sight entirely. Her lips pursed with thinly veiled disdain, eyes scanning Raymond as if he were a smudge on an otherwise spotless courtroom. Her gavel struck once. The sound echoed like thunder, instantly silencing the remaining whispers. "Let's get this over with," she muttered, not bothering to hide her irritation. "I don't have all day for theatrics." Raymond raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. He had seen this act before, the performance of authority. The glare. The voice. The assumption. He had been here before, in spirit if not in place. Judge Langston leaned forward, her tone sharpened like a blade. "People like you always think the rules don't apply. Always searching for shortcuts, looking for an easy way out." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Even the court stenographer momentarily hesitated, fingers hovering over the keys in disbelief. But Raymond remained still. "Excuse me, Your Honor?" His voice was even, tempered, carrying no anger, just the kind of firmness honed by years of restraint. "You heard me," she snapped. "You people are always trying to manipulate the system, thinking you can waltz in here and get special treatment. Not in my courtroom." Another silence, heavier now. A few audience members shifted uneasily. Even the bailiff's jaw twitched. Raymond inhaled slowly, letting the insult land but not penetrate. This wasn't new. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a small badge, placing it calmly on the table where it caught the courtroom lights and gleamed like a blade drawn from a sheath. "I had hoped to be treated fairly today," he said, his voice carrying weight and precision. "But it appears I need to remind you who I really am." Langston rolled her eyes, a smirk forming. "Oh, really? And who might that be?" Raymond placed the badge in full view and leaned forward. "Special Agent Raymond Ellis, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The courtroom froze. The prosecutor, previously distracted by his files, went rigid. The bailiff's eyes darted to the badge, his posture straightening unconsciously. Even a few audience members leaned in, faces drawn in surprise. Langston, however, was unmoved. She let out a dry chuckle. "Nice try," she sneered. "You expect me to believe that? That's a fake badge, and you know it." Raymond said nothing. Instead, he reached into his other pocket, retrieved a federal ID, and stepped forward, placing it directly on the judge's bench. "You're welcome to verify it, Your Honor." Langston's smirk twitched. She glanced at the ID, eyes flickering for the briefest moment. The emblem was unmistakable. Official. Real. But she leaned back, dismissing it with a scoff. "Even if this were true," she said, regaining her usual condescension, "it doesn't change the fact that you're standing before me as a defendant." "That's where you're mistaken," Raymond replied, his voice low but clear. "I'm not the one on trial. I'm here on official business. And after what you just said, well, that business now includes you." The temperature in the room shifted. A gasp rolled through the gallery. Whispers returned like a rising tide. Langston's eyes narrowed. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, Agent Ellis, but I run this courtroom. Not you." "That's where you're wrong," he said, taking another step forward. "And you're about to find out just how wrong you are." She stared at him, face tightening, reaching for any ounce of control she thought she had left. "This is my courtroom," she repeated. "I decide what happens here." Raymond turned to the bailiff. "I suggest you verify my credentials. Call the Bureau. They'll confirm I'm not just authorized. I'm acting on direct orders." The bailiff hesitated. That moment of doubt flickered again in Langston's eyes. She waved a hand dismissively. "This is absurd," she muttered. "We're done here." She lifted her gavel, prepared to move on. But Raymond wasn't finished. "Actually, Your Honor," he said, lifting a folded document from his jacket, "you're the one who's done." She froze. "This," he continued, unfolding the document with precision, "is a federal warrant for your arrest." The sound that followed was chaos restrained by awe. The prosecutor dropped his pen. The bailiff instinctively stepped closer. Even Langston's clerk stopped typing, her eyes wide. Langston laughed, a wild, nervous thing. "You have got to be kidding me," she said, voice wavering. "This is a joke. This has to be a joke." Raymond said nothing. He let the paper speak for itself. The bailiff took the document from his hand and read it, his eyes scanning line by line. His shoulders stiffened. The audience was dead silent now. Langston watched the bailiff's reaction, the color slowly draining from her face. The smirk disappeared. Her hand gripped the bench edge so tightly her knuckles turned white. "I'm a judge," she whispered. "You were," Raymond said. The bailiff looked up. "Your Honor, I need you to stand." She laughed again, but it was hollow now. "You can't be serious," she snapped. "Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea how much power I have in this city?" Raymond looked her in the eye. "Not anymore." The silence that followed shattered like glass. Gasps, whispers, eyes wide with disbelief. Langston's gaze darted around the courtroom, searching for someone, anyone, to back her. No one moved. The prosecutor lowered his eyes. The clerk resumed typing. The officers in the back stood still. "Please," the bailiff said, stepping closer. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." Langston's hand trembled. Then, suddenly, she straightened her posture, forcing confidence into her voice. "You think this is over? You think this ends me?" she hissed. "This is a misunderstanding. I'll be back on this bench before the week is out." "You won't," Raymond said simply. "Your corruption ends today." The bailiff pulled out the cuffs. The click of metal echoed louder than a gunshot. Langston flinched as the cold steel snapped around her wrists. Her face twisted. Disbelief, anger, desperation. "This is a disgrace," she hissed, struggling. "No," Raymond said quietly. "What you did with this bench, that was the disgrace." As she was escorted away from her throne of years, the audience rose, slowly at first, then with growing momentum. Some clapped. Others simply stared, watching as power changed hands before their eyes. The substitute judge stepped forward and picked up the gavel Langston had once wielded with unchecked arrogance. "Case dismissed," he declared. Raymond turned and walked toward the exit, the crowd parting silently. Outside, the sky had brightened, and somewhere deep within the walls of a system too long asleep, something had begun to wake. Justice had been served, not by the robe, but by the courage to defy it. And as Agent Raymond Ellis stepped into the daylight, he knew this was only the beginning.